Let's give it a go. Perfect. So welcome to the Buying Your Own Home in Rotterdam webinar. So my name is Kimo Paula. I'm the founder of Expat Housing Network, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about several different things. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm half Dutch, half Caribbean. I'm a proud father of a daughter who's 4, but that thinks she's 17 or 16. That's always fun. I bought my own home about 5 years ago, and it took me quite a while to get my offers accepted. By the way, back then I wasn't in the business of supporting people with buying homes. Had I known then what I know now, things would have looked a lot different. Today we're going to talk about several different things. Well, we'll introduce Expat Housing Network a little bit. Then we're going to talk about the Mindstate, what you need in savings, several tips to win in the housing market, and the timeline. But let me first introduce my team, because I think greatness is achieved in the agency of others. If you were to work with Expat Housing Network, you'll most likely work with one of these team members. As you can see, they're either from abroad or they have actually lived abroad. So we know what it's like to move to a new country and settle in there. Also, EHN is not traditional real estate agent. Our background is not in real estate. Our background is in liberal arts, psychology, and so on. We are focused on helping you find and secure a home and making the process as pleasant as possible. We have tons of experience now, so we know all the ins and outs. We only help with buying and renting. We don't do selling, so we're not going to kind of like leave you for another client who is selling a property, which in this case or this market is much easier than buying a property. We charge a fixed fee, no commission, and we know what it's like to sell in a new country. What is the added value of Expat Housing Network? Several different things. Selling agents will take our offers more seriously. We can also sometimes book in viewings when it's no longer possible, and we support by reviewing Dutch and legal property documents. One of the other things is that we do is market valuation definition. So we actually find out what the market valuation range of the property you want to offer on is. And of course, we'll inform you about rules and regulations and make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I made technically when I started. Maybe I am a bit too fast. Thanks, Danish. I'll try and slow down a little bit. Question for you guys: where in the process are you? Are you in the orientation phase, the search phase, viewing, or offer submittance? Just pop it in the chat and I can see where you are, so I can actually maybe tailor make this presentation a little bit for you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about the mind state of entering this housing market. So let me share some numbers for you. Last quarter, there were for sale about actually currently for sale about 1,700 properties. The average housing price went up 20% versus last year. And as you can see, it moves very, very quickly. So 15 days from the moment it actually goes on the market to the moment it's sold. So be there quickly as well. And this has an impact on your experience, because you won't be able to view the place 3 or 4 times. So most likely you'll view it once. With a little bit of luck, you'll be able to actually view it one other time. So thanks a lot, Nuno and Victor, for sharing where you are in the process. As we can see, the price developments, and honestly, this will actually go up a little bit more. The prices dropped a little bit 2012, 13. That's kind of like an after effect of the global financial crisis. And then from 2015 onwards, they've steadily picked up. And I don't think they're going to change anytime soon, because this is why there's several reasons why the prices continue to increase. Fiscal benefits, tax exemption. If you're 34 years or younger, if you buy your first property using the tax exemption and you buy a property up to 400,000 euros, then you don't pay transfer tax. That is 2% of the purchase price, which is quite a hefty amount. What we're seeing though is that people put that money back into the offers that they make. Also, there's interest rebates, so you get the interest, part of the interest back, because you can deduct it off your taxable income. And this is, by the way, mortgage interest that we're talking about. And there's no capital gain. So when you sell your property, you can use that profit and put it back into a new property. Again, we're seeing that happen on a big scale. So that drives the price up. And the last thing is the tax-free donation from parents. So they can donate about 100,000 euros or up to 100,000 euros to their kids without paying any taxes, and they can put that into the property. So that also drives your price up. Besides that, you have a low interest rate, so it's very cheap to borrow money. It's not free. Be careful, it's not free, so it still costs money, but it's very cheap. And then the rents are quite high, so that drives more people to the buying market, which makes it more competitive at this point. And there's not enough supply because the government's not building fast enough. However, the supply is not the main issue, right? The demand is the main issue. The government has made it so attractive to buy a home that a lot of people are flocking towards that market, whereas renting is fine as well. If you've got a good rental amount, then not too high, not too low, or not too high. Low is better, actually. Not too high, then why would you buy, right? There's a lot of flexibility in renting a property versus buying a home. But if you do want to move forward and buy a home, then what would you need in savings? Well, it's actually very simple. If you are 34 years or younger and you buy a property up to 400,000 euros, then the total amount you need in savings for closing fees is 3%. Everyone else, so if you're 35 or older, or if you buy a property more expensive than 400,000 euros, then you'll need about 5% in total of the purchase price. And this is where we see what that is. So you have the transfer tax, which is 2%. Again, this group doesn't pay that. The other group does. The notary costs money, the bank costs money, or the mortgage broker costs money, the real estate agent charges money. By the way, they charge a percentage, a commission. I don't know why why you would pay them more if you're already paying more for your property. We charge a fixed fee. Then you have the appraiser. By the way, this amount will most likely go up this year because it's going to be a little bit more complicated for them to make the appraisal report. And then you have all these other amounts as well. NHG is only relevant if you buy a property up to 325,000 euros and you want to get your property or your mortgage insured. What is maybe good to know is that some of these costs, like in the third column, you see yes, yes, yes. This is tax deductible. So all costs related to your mortgage are tax deductible, which means that at the end of the year, you can deduct it from your taxable income and you'll get 30 to 40% back on it. So make sure you have this in savings actually before you start the process, or that you'll get it the first month, right? Because this is what you would need to at least secure the property. Now let's talk about a few more things, tips to win in the current market. One of the tips is value, 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 value. So we get a question asked a lot: how much should I overbid over the asking price? Then I tell them, stop it right there. Let's look at this property. For an example, this property is put up from on the market for 395. So that's the asking price. Now I have to tell you, the asking price is very subjective because the selling agent can define what he wants to ask for the property, right? It can be very close to the market value or very far off from the market value. Let's look at this property, 395 on the market. The market value, however, is 415. How do you define the market value? By looking at properties sold in a neighborhood the last 6 to 12 months that are similar. So you don't compare a 40 square meter property to a 100 square meter property. You don't compare a property with a garden with a property that doesn't have any outdoor space. So they have to be similar in characteristics as well. Look at properties sold in the neighborhood the last 6 to 12 months and then compare them to your property. Based on that, you'll be able to define the market valuation. The market valuation is important because the bank will only give you this amount. They don't look at this amount. They also don't look at the purchase price. They look at the market value. This is what the bank will give you. Okay, so now we have asking price 395, market value 415, and purchase price 435. Then the difference between the asking price and purchase price is 40K. It's about 10%, right? The difference between market value and purchase price is about 5%. Now, if we use this narrative, then everybody should say, hey, well, you should offer 10% over the asking price to get the property. But the next agent puts the same property up for 375. I don't know why. He's a bit more opportunistic, or he's stupid, or he wants to impress the sellers, right? Market valuation is still the same. Somebody offers the same amount, purchase price 435, but suddenly this narrative changes because everybody starts saying, no, you should offer 16% over the asking price based on what people have paid for the asking price. But you shouldn't be looking at this one. Look at market valuation. That is key. That is important. That is driving. We're happy to support you with that. There's also something, let me pop it in the chat. There's also something called Kadastra.nl. You can actually do some puzzling there and you'll find property prices there too. Now, you've touched base on the market value. Now you want to submit a winning offer. What's a winning offer? Well, a winning offer is a good price, but it's not always the highest price. Let's go back to this example. Or maybe there's another example here. Yes, let's look at this one, right? Let's say you've offered on this property, you've offered for 70,000 euros because you thought, okay, I need to offer 16% over. Let's make it 450. Let's act a little bit more realistic. 450, but the market valuation is 415. You only have 20,000 euros in savings, so technically you should only be offering this, but you offered 15,000 euros more. If the selling agent gets wind of the fact that you don't have enough money to cover it, he's not going to accept your offer. So the highest price will not always be the best price. The selling agents will know what the market valuation is, so they'll look at that. Then offer security to the seller, right? The seller wants to know if you're going to move forward with buying the property or not. Make sure that you consider what clauses you put in the offer. One is a finance clause, which states, for example, that you can pull out if you don't get your mortgage. That is a clause that a lot of people are taking out. I would be careful with that. I wouldn't do it without consent from your financial advisor and your agent because there are risks there. The technical inspection, for example, is another clause that people put in. So if they're not happy with the results of the technical inspection, they can pull out. That's something you can put in, but be mindful of the things that you put in based on how popular a property is as well, because your offer might be similar in value, but if you add more kind of like ifs, buts in, then maybe the seller will go for somebody else. Offer the least amount of hassle, very important. We had a client a year ago that wanted to have the whole property repainted and done, and the seller said, you know what, that's not what I'm here for. Like, the property is pretty good as it is. So if you do want that, you have to do it yourself. We ended up getting the property, but without all those conditions. We advised him not to do it. There was a chance that we would have risked the property. But another case is, for example, if the seller wants to move out the 1st of March because he's bought something that needs to be renovated, if you ask him to move out the 1st of January, then that's going to cause hassle for the seller, right? So understand when the seller wants to move out, why he's moving out, and what kind of like the range is what you can ask. If there's critical things, like for example, fix the boiler, you can actually ask that. But when it comes to these other things, then be mindful of how attractive you want to make your offer. Then offer personal touch. Very, very, very important. Share a little bit more about yourself. A photo, some text, background, why you love the property, especially if you're dealing with homeowners who've lived in the property, then they'll have an emotional connection with it. So if you compete with an investor who wants to buy it, then most likely you'll end up top, especially if it's a similar offer. So offer that personal touch. Now we just discussed this one. Then last but not least, due diligence, right? This is actually a question for you guys. So we have two type of people that can come into the property. Technical inspector, she'll inspect the condition of the property, make sure you understand if it needs to be renovated anytime soon, what works, what doesn't work. And then you have the appraiser that actually comes in to define the actual market valuation, because the bank will not take a valuation from us because, hey, we're biased, you pay us. So they don't do that. They don't get a market valuation from the seller either, or selling agent, because they're biased too. So there has to be an independent party that comes in. Technically, he's not fully independent because you will pay the appraiser. But what happens, the appraiser drafts a report, sends it to an independent institute, and then once they've checked and see if you play better rules, then they'll send it to the bank. My question is, when do you get these guys in? Before or after your offer is accepted? I can take a quick sip, maybe pop it in the chat. So do you get the technical inspector in before or after the offer is accepted? And the same thing for the appraiser, before or after? I'm seeing some mixed signals. So after, before. Anyone else? By the way, this session is recorded as well, so you don't have to really worry about taking notes or anything. Okay, I'm going to spill the beans on you guys. So these guys are booked in after the offer is accepted. Why? Because once your offer is accepted, then you only know if you're going to move forward. If your offer is rejected and you've booked these guys in, you've lost $1,000, right? So what happens is this timeline. And by the way, it was a bit of a trick question, because when are you committed to the deal? That's what I'm going to share now. So you submit an offer, it gets accepted. Then you get these guys in to draft, to like look at the property and look at the valuation. You want to make sure that you get your reports before you sign a purchase contract. Why? Well, the purchase contract is an official moment. You're not locked into the deal yet. That happens 3 days after you sign a purchase contract, which is called the cool-off period. You can technically pull out of the deal without giving any reason. You have to inform the notary or the agent and the owner as well. But technically, you're only committed once that cool-off period is ended. Until then, you can pull out without giving any reason. But you want to know what the condition of the value and the valuation of that property is before you officially sign, because maybe you want to negotiate a little bit, or maybe you actually already want to pull out and not have any notary fees. So get these guys in after your offer is accepted, and hopefully get the reports before the bridge contract is signed. If that's not possible, get the reports before the cool-off period ends. Question from Victor. I heard that sometimes there's not enough time to do an inspection. So again, the inspection is done after offer is accepted. So you should be able to buy some time. This timeline here from offer accepted to bridge contract signing takes a week and a half around. Cool. Now let's talk a little bit more about the timeline. So this is a little bit skewed because it can take a little bit longer from you to start the search and actually get your offer submitted and approved. But let's say your offer is submitted tomorrow. Congratulations. Then you book the appraiser and technical inspector in. Then you'll sign the bridge contract. The mortgage application officially is completed, or the application is completed after the bridge contract is signed, because then you'll have the appraisal report as well, all your personal documents. But don't wait to chat with a mortgage advisor until then. The cool-off period ends 3 days after signing the purchase contract, and then you're locked in, unless you have clauses in the contract that states that you can pull out if you have, for example, not a mortgage or anything else. Then there's a bit of a dead period because the mortgage needs to be approved for. You can actually visit the property, maybe check what you'd like to take over or do some measurements, of course, in cooperation with the seller. Then about 7 days before you get the keys, you get a statement of completion. It's kind of like the final invoice from the notary that states that you'd still have to pay something because you have your purchase price, and on top of it, you have your closing fees, and then you have to deduct the mortgage off of it because that's then paid by the bank, and you'll keep a certain amount that has to be paid. So that's what the notary will ask you to. Then the inspection will take place. Before you get the keys, you'll go to the property to make sure the property is in a good condition. Then once it is, you'll go to the notary and do the transfer. So you get the keys, but you'll sign the documents first. So you'll sign the mortgage deed and the transfer deed. The transfer deed makes you the proud owner of the property. The mortgage deed makes you the proud owner of a mortgage. Let's say you move in, something is not working right, then you can actually flag that to the seller. They have an obligation to share with you what is not working, what is working in the property. If something wasn't working on the date of transfer and you can prove that, then the seller is technically liable for that if he hasn't disclosed it. So that is good to be mindful of. Don't wait for 2 months. Technically, it's a reasonable term, but the longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes to prove if you can actually say that it was already the case when you moved in. Ooh, I sailed through that presentation. Maybe I can give like a little recap. A little recap is, so what you want to do is make sure that you understand that the market is going up at the moment. I don't expect it to go down anytime soon, especially next year, most likely next year and a half. Again, that's microeconomics. Macroeconomics, very difficult to say, right? So I don't know what the impact, the global impact will be from, for example, a COVID or anything like that. We're seeing the housing market actually getting more competitive every day. So I don't expect any time to happen soon, but who knows? I don't have a glass ball. If I would be laying on the beach right now, probably giving you the same webinar, but I would be in a different environment. Then make sure you understand what the market does. Look at market value of the property. Also, double, triple check what kind of offer you submit. Make it a considerate and good offer. Don't make it an unrealistic offer, and do your due diligence in time. By the way, this process from start to finish can take anywhere from 3 months to 9 months, 12 months, depending on how fast you find something, how fast the seller wants to move out, and such. So that is the webinar for today. Any questions so far? Please pop in the chat. Any questions? What is your fee range? I actually should put a slide in there. So we have two different packages. One is a accompanied package, one is an unaccompanied package. The unaccompanied package is 2,500 euros, all including, so taxes and everything, no hidden fees, no hidden commissions or anything like that. And the other one is 4,000 euros where we actually accompany you to everything. I hope that answers your question, Renos. Any other questions? I sailed a little bit through their presentation. I don't know. I like to talk fast. I don't know why. Can you make a joint mortgage? It's a question by Nuno. Can you make a joint mortgage with someone living and working in another country? I was thinking of using my cousin to help me get a mortgage. So in order to get a mortgage, you need a social security number. We call it a BSN in the Netherlands. If you are living in the Netherlands, you have an address here, you can get a BSN. But if you don't, then you won't be able to sign up for that mortgage because the bank will not be able to kind of like verify that you're paying taxes here, citizens, stuff like that. Question from Danish. Which area in and around Rotterdam are preferable for expats? That's a very specific question, right? So preferable for expats. I'm not sure what you exactly are looking for. It really depends, right? Some people want to live close to the center and have maybe an apartment. Some people want to have a little more outside space. Maybe be a little bit more specific because I don't consider certain areas specifically for expats. Of course, I consider certain areas in Rotterdam. Maybe I can actually draft up the map. Bring up a map. Can you still? Not sure if you can still see it. Let me pull it up. Bum, 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 bum. So, what I would say is of course, anything close in this area is quite attractive, but it's also a little bit more expensive. A little bit further to some of these southern areas, the outside, like it depends on how badly you want it, but I would stay close to the water. When it comes to some of the outside cities, yeah, it depends a little bit on what you want. And I really like Delft. I really like Gouda as well. Vlaardingen is like suburbs. Like it depends a little bit on what you're looking for. From a price perspective, this is a little bit more expensive area, the north. So Krooswijk, Kralingen. Yeah, I think this is maybe worth actually having a chat over. Question. How banks in the Netherlands look for giving mortgage to people from abroad? They look pretty good on it, right? They like to give some mortgages. Some banks have different criteria, but in general, they are fine with giving you a mortgage. However, like I mentioned before, also to Nuno, is that you have to have a BSN number to get a mortgage. So if you're living abroad, then you won't be able to get a mortgage. If you live in the Netherlands, you will be able to get a mortgage. Rinos asks, can I get a mortgage when I have a 1-year contract? Yes, you can. You would need an employer statement, which states that your employer will keep you on if things go well in the company, if you perform well after your first year. It's a one piece here, one paper, so it's very, very easy to request from your HR department. Hugo Foods, is it more difficult to get a mortgage when you're coming from the UK? Not specifically, no. No, no, I would consider it to be a little more tricky to get a mortgage if you're from several countries where there's no. So, for example, if you're currently from Afghanistan or from Iraq or from Myanmar, stuff like that, like it will be a little bit more trickier to get a loan if you're from those countries. It's not impossible, by the way, right? So it's not like they'll just say no. But for companies that have kind of like tax treaties or that have interchange treaties with the Netherlands or with the EU, it's a little bit easier. But in general, yeah, it's for the countries that are considered to be certain risk countries, it's a little bit trickier, but it's still possible. We actually helped somebody support or secure a home from Afghanistan last week. So, any further questions? Does the first-time homebuyer get a 100% mortgage? Yes. So the mortgage that you get is based on the value of the property. So you'll get 100% based on the value of the property. Of course, your salary has to meet that, right? So if you're not earning enough to get that much money, then you won't get that. But if you earn enough to get that much money, then they'll look at the value of the property and they'll give you 100% on that. What fees can be included in the mortgage? So technically, no fees can be included in the mortgage. What sometimes happens is that if you are able to actually get a valuation of higher than what you've purchased the property for, which is very uncommon in times like this, then sometimes you can borrow the extra money and then you can use it for this for the fees, but that doesn't happen very often. If you want to do renovations, then you can have about 60% of that included into the mortgage, but you have to prove that it adds value. So there's a process that you have to take. You have to make a valuation of the property as is, and then a valuation of what it would be after the upgrades. And then on the side, you have to have a quote of what it's going to cost, and then they'll cover part of that most likely. If you can prove that, it will actually increase the value of your property. Can both partners contribute 100% towards the mortgage? I'm not sure what you exactly mean by that, but yes, you can equally contribute to the mortgage. So what you do is you look at when it comes to salary, like the partner can contribute 90% of their salary to the mortgage. So it's not 100%. So the gross kind of like the calculation is that you have to multiply your annual salary, including holiday pay, by 5 times. And if you have a partner, you can do the same thing, but for 90% of her or his salary. I heard that you need about 10 to 15% cash to cover almost all fees. Is this accurate? No, that's not accurate. Like I mentioned, you either need 3% if you pay transfer tax or you need to pay 5% if you don't pay transfer tax. However, currently the market is hot, so a lot of people are offering over market value. So if you want to submit an offer that is more attractive than the other offers, then we're seeing people offer kind of like cash over the market value. I'm not a big fan of that because it just continues to drive the price up. But in the end, it's a supply and demand thing. And the government has put a lot of effort into making sure that the supply stays a little bit the same and that the demand will be increasing. Their constituency consists of mainly homeowners and home buyers. So for them, it's interesting. Okay, I'll give you 4 more minutes. Any more questions? This is the time to ask. By the way, if you wake up tomorrow morning and be like, oh, I should have asked that question, then don't hesitate to reach out. Like I'll pop a link in the chat. Just book in a call via this link. It's free of charge, no strings attached. Just book in a call and you'll actually be able to chat with one of my lovely colleagues and they'll be able to support you. Most likely you'll talk to Katie. She actually lived and bought a home in Rotterdam as well. So she'll be able to share a little bit more about the neighborhoods and the locations there. Oh, one more question from Danish. Searching through Funda is better than reaching out to specific marketplace housing agents. Yes, I would focus on searching through Funda. And what I would do is there's like a little button underneath the kind of like contact the agent that says book a viewing. do that. Why? Because you'll be in their system. You can still call them afterwards, but make sure you actually book that viewing in there. Can you talk about deposits? There's no deposits necessary. So what we do have is, so you don't have to pay upfront, but what we do have is once you've secured the property, then the seller will actually want to know that you're going to move forward once you're committed. So they'll ask for a deposit. It's not a down payment, it is a deposit of 10%. Sometimes that you can do that in cash, but most of the times people do it with a bank guarantee. You'll pay 200-300 euros for that, and then the bank will write a piece of paper saying to the seller, I'll guarantee that we'll transfer 10% in case something were to happen, right? So that's what happens. One more question from Sylvia. Well, I gave you 4 minutes, so take advantage of that. New builds, what about them? Let me give you the pros and cons. I should actually do like this, and then you'll see like the little bubbles pop up. But a new build is great because it's high quality. You can influence to some extent what is going to be finished, and most likely by the time that you move in, the value will have increased, right? The downside of a new build is that you don't know exactly how it's going to be finished because it's all drawing paperwork and stuff like that. So picturing it and being, I sold a property or I bought a property once for a client, and it's stated very clearly in the description that in the middle of the room there was a kind of like a beam. I don't know why they put it there, but it had an impact on the kind of like the spaciousness feel of the bright place. But you couldn't tell that from the drawings. We informed him like, hey, do you really want this? This is a very odd place for a beam. He said, yes, I don't care. I'll build a cupboard around it. But when we actually saw the property, when it was finished, it did feel a little bit like now he's decorated really nicely, but you want to know what the property is like when you buy it, right? So make sure you actually do your research there. The second thing is that you'll pay double fees for a while because the mortgage that you take out for your new build will start for paying the ground or the right to own the ground, and you'll have a rental for that time, or you have another mortgage, so you'll have double fees for a while, right? So that's something to take into account. By the way, the upside as well of a new build property, you don't pay transfer tax, so that's 2% safe there, which technically covers for the actual double fees that you would normally pay for your mortgage. Is there anything else? No, I think those two are the most important things. Also, like one more thing maybe is that it always takes longer than expect. So build that into your planning. That's that. I think that's it, guys and girls. Have a lovely day. I hope to answer your question a little bit, Silvio. Any further questions, pop it in a call with us. I've just posted the link again. Take care. I hope that I was actually be able to add some value to you guys. For now, have a great day. And well, I won't be speaking to you before the weekend. So a weekend ahead, and try and enjoy some of these last late summer beams in the Netherlands. Take care. Bye-bye.